Beginning to see the blue sky emerge as the clouds burn off here in the southern Willamette Valley in Oregon. We're east of Eugene, Oregon, in Tracktown, USA, in the city of Springfield. Those of you who are Simpsons fans, yes, this is the inspiration for the Simpsons Springfield. Matt Groening, the creator of that animated series, grew up in Portland, Oregon, and went to school at the U of O. Little known fact I'm throwing in the midst of a Big Ten cross-country meet. But
well, let's talk about Ken Kesey, the writer for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and was a wrestler at the University of Oregon. A back injury prevented him from competing in the Olympic trials, but he was a pretty good wrestler in his day.
So the women are out on the course, getting in their final stride outs as they get set to race over the same course the men just raced in here at Pine Ridge Golf Club. The men's race was dominated by BYU, 15 points. You can't do any better than that. First five across the line. The battle for second, as we went to the break, they were still actually bringing in results in real time, and so those numbers have gotten bigger, but the result hasn't changed. Oregon is still going to finish, it looks like, still unofficial, but we think will be the second-place team at Dellinger.
And, Paul, I think the major thing here was Oregon had that strategy of moving up in the second half of the race. They garnered 2 additional positions to move up into second. Right at the end, scoring 92 points. Montana State got really hurt by their 5th man, and Gonzaga ends up finishing 4th. When we went to break, it was Gonzaga over Montana State. Then, once all the precincts reported in, Montana State got a 1-point edge on Gonzaga.
And taking that even further, this wasn't a mail-in ballot attempt by Oregon. I think, we talked about, Jerry Schumacher looking at the long game and championship season to come. They did that month up in Utah, high-altitude training, and they're coming off that hard block, and they're just trying to get into race shape for when it matters.
Indeed. And it's going to be interesting to see, because I think that Big Ten championship be fairly wide open, and Oregon definitely has a shot to do very well in that particular meet.
Well, let's revisit the women's race here. It was teased at the start of the show as being a battle between Utah and Oregon, and you're feeling strongly that that's still going to be the case here today?
Very much so. I think Utah, it really has this nice mix. They have the senior leadership in McKaylie Caesar, who was 3rd here 2 years ago, and Morgan Jensen, who's a 15:58, 33:28, 5,000, 10,000 runner. And then the really good sophomores, Vringer, Katarzyna Nowakowska, very, very strong team. And also, let's not forget Annastasia Peters, who was the number 5 frosh at the NCAA cross-country meet last year, but the number 1 American freshman at the NCAA cross-country meet last year.
And being a little selfish and putting my South Eugene Axe alumni shirt on my chest, Maddy Elmore is going to be in the Oregon squad this year. And, it is always a program like Oregon, wealth of opportunities to bring in the top runners in the country, but they went a mile away up on 24th or 18th Avenue for Maddy Elmore. And, in the history of Oregon, you've seen some of these local athletes all the way back to that have been such an important ingredient. And that year that the Oregon women won the Triple Crown, it was Maggie Schmedick out of Sheldon High School, who by just a sliver got herself 1 place ahead and was that 5th place runner and gave the Oregon women the victory. So that local ingredient, even back to when the men won the NCAA golf championship, it was a South Eugene grad who made the winning putt. And so Oregon's heritage of bringing in the best in the world to race for Shalane Flanagan, also using the backyard to find some real good talent as well.
And Maddy Elmore's a real talent herself. I mean, she broke a 39-year-old school record in the 5,000 meters, moved to 13th performer on the all-time collegiate list. She's run this course before, 16th in 22, 7th last year, but she hasn't run since May. And she was hurt in the warm-ups at the Pac-12 Track and Field Championships in Boulder. So this is her first race back. To your point, she's going to have a lot of people rooting for her on this course, but it is very intriguing to see how she will do not having raced in 5 months. By the way, Oregon has another terrific runner in Wilma Nilsson. She's a former Bradley and UW runner. And she had a great summer, Paul. She ran 2:08 in Rome at the 2:00:88 in Rome at the Euros. She ran 4:10 in Sollentuna in June. And then on August 21st, she ran a 4:28 mile. So she is definitely what we would call track fit. Now, whether she is cross-country fit, we'll see here.
We're about to find out as we go high above this Pine Ridge Golf Club and get the racing underway. The women over 6,000 meters for a Bill Dellinger Championship in 2024. And keep an eye on those Oregon women. They're coming into picture there. Now center of picture, and you see Oregon State with their strong women's program going through that transition, as a lot of these programs are. And, they're going to be going to these championship races and going to be looking left and looking right and saying these are new schools because of all this realignment.
Yeah, this is true. And Oregon State, Louis Quintana has done a marvelous job with his team. But to your point of transition, there's no Grace Featherstone-Ha. There's no Kaylee Mitchell. But Kate Laurent is really good. She was 28th at Nuttycombe, and she was 3rd at the Priest Trail Run last month. So he still has a couple horses for courses. But you can see Utah right up there. And Maddy Elmore right in the center of the picture there, Paul, with 4 Utah runners all around her.
We'll see how this race unfolds, as it is often the case on a race day. You'll see 2 entirely different races between the men and the women. As we look at the start list here, this is in alphabetical order. It is not the bib order with those numbers on the either side of the kit here. So
I think that's Kyla Christopher Moody, a senior from Montana State, formerly of Colorado. I believe that's who it is. She was 5th in the Big Sky Indoor 5,000 last year.
So she's making a little bit of a breakaway attempt here early on. We will get updated splits at 1,000 meters here on the women's side, so we'll be able to reset the field for you in their placings and as well give you the in-process team scores. But already, Tom, we see a different strategy here employed, though, to credit Utah. They're kind of doing what BYU did early, is staying together.
But we didn't see somebody really break away from the pack like we saw in that men's race. They were all together. And this is a pretty sizable gap that I believe it is Christopher Moody. She's a 16:08 5K runner, 35:17 10,000 meter runner. I believe that is her out front. But Utah seems to be packing them in, Paul. There's a lot of red and white. I see at least 4 up there, and I see Maddy Elmore up there. Another somewhat local runner, Anika Thompson, senior now. I can't believe it's gone this fast. 15:52, 32:54. 10K runner. She was 11th at this meet last year, but 6th at the Pac-12s in the 10,000 meters.
Out of Junction City, Oregon, just north of the Eugene Airport. Really strong sports program up their way. And
do you remember Billy Harper?
I do. And you remember the Wilcoxes?
Yeah.
So Justin Wilcox, the head coach at Cal, and his brother Justin Wilcox, who was a tight end, then became a professional wrestler, I think, for a time. Their dad, legendary and late, great Dave Wilcox, the NFL Hall of Famer from the San Francisco 49ers. The women's 6,000 meters here now coming through, and it is now officially Kyla Christopher Moody. So good call by Tom Cure, and now confirmed by our results. Lori Murphy of Weber State, Lindsey Peters of Oregon, and Maddy Elmore of Oregon. That is your top 4. We'll try to populate those for you on the left side of your screen momentarily, but as we look down, it's Utah 3rd, 6th, 7th, 9th, and in fact, there's a bunch of folks kind of coming across the line in about 9th position, and by virtue of that strong early placings and sticks by the Utes, they are in the team lead here. That will update here in real time. Oregon currently in 2nd with 78 points with Elmore, and then the mentioned Anika Thompson also in that top 10, and then Wilma Nielsen, who Tom also mentioned, the transfer from Washington. She is now in 13th overall.
Paul, a little shout out to Lori Murphy of Weber State, who was 2nd at that intermediate split. She won the Big Sky Preview cross country earlier this year, 19th at Gants Creek, which is a very, very good cross country meet. She's a 16:40, 36:17, 5:10K woman, but I think she may be one of the most improved cross country runners in the country. And on the Utah side, interesting to see Lindsey Peters up there as their number 1, because we see Caesar in 6th, Vringer in 7th, Annastasia Peters in 9th, Nowakowska in also tied for 9th. Those are the women you expect to be up more towards the front than Lindsey Peters. So if you're Kyle Kep in his 20th year at Utah, oh, wow, this is bonus points for me if Lindsey Peters is up there and she can stay up there. That's a really nice performance by her.
Well, and that's a lot of what happens in these, and again, we cannot say over and over again, it's still relatively early in the season, so coaches are starting to put, teams together and putting runners out on these courses and saying, hey, if you want to be in that squad that is at the line at the conference championships and on into the regional and then hopefully eventually the national championships, here's a moment of opportunity where you can make a name for yourself and make a case for being in that squad as the Cal men do their run through here. And the gap between the leader, Christopher Moody of Montana State, and the chase pack that is including Maddy Elmore of Oregon and others. In fact, it's pretty much a constant flow of runners following Christopher Moody, who struck out on her own early and is trying to manage and maintain that lead here as we'll get them through to the halfway mark, and that'll be the next spot on the course where we'll be able to update the standings. That 3:11 clock that is standing there, that was the split at 1 kilometer.
And Maddy Elmore, she's looking good. Christopher Moody was up by 5 seconds at that first split, but Maddy Elmore now separating with one of our Utah runners, and Maddy looks terrific. She's got really good tempo there, looks very, very relaxed, and it's quite curious that Christopher Moody went out that fast. I'm not sure what the motivation was for that, but it looks like the pack is now starting to catch up with her a little bit. It's also a very quick split, by the way, 3:14 for that first 1,000. That's a tough, that's a really fast time for the first 1K. So now here comes the chase pack, and it may not be too much longer before they engulf her.
In the lower left of your screen, that is not a golf shot tracker of my last round at Pine Ridge Golf Club. It is, in fact, the course tracker for this 6,000 meters, 3 2-kilometer loops, and the gap between the leader, Christopher Moody, and the rest of the field that includes Elmore is dwindling with every stride. So she's not necessarily coming back to the field as much as the field deciding they need to get back into contact with her. And you can see that strong contingent of Utah Utes that are alongside Anika Thompson of Oregon. And I think they're just allowing that chase pack to reel her in and then hope they'll still be able to keep in contact here as they make their way now through up to about 8 minutes.
Anika Thompson she's a grinder, Paul. You look at her, she's got her head down. She's like a boxer when she runs. Arms are going side to side, but she's a grinder, and she's a tough runner. And she's now moving in front of that Utah team. And Maddy Elmore into the lead. Maddy looks fantastic right now. For somebody who hasn't raced since May, she just looks so comfortable. Really impressive.
Well, that was one of those moments where she didn't just decide to take the lead, but she has asserted herself in the process here. It has broken out to about a 10-meter advantage and beginning to pull away here. So, kind of halfway mark of this race, and Maddy Elmore making her season's debut on the home course and now has the lead here at the Bill Dellinger Invite.
And she's just pulling away massively. That was such a great surge. She just gave a little signal to someone there on the sideline like, yeah, I'm feeling it looks like she's full of run, Paul, that she's just having a terrific day. Otherwise, why make a move that early in the race? But she is just on point here, and it's really, Shalane Flanagan just must be thrilled to see this development for her team and for Maddy personally.
Out on that wide loop here at the northern end of the course, and then they'll reach that 3-kilometer mark. It'll be halfway home, so trying to preserve that lead. The previous leader, Christopher Moody, now part of that group that includes that large contingent of Utah Utes. So Oregon in that team race going to need some folks in that second, maybe third chase position to begin to try to move up in the standings and try to get up and alongside those Utes, because they have a strong group there and I think have the 5 they need there
Yes.
for team score.
It does appear that way. And it's interesting here. It's not, you kind of talk about the loneliness of the long distance runner. It's hard actually for Elmore right now because she doesn't know exactly how far back they are. And she has 2 kilometers to go here.
And that's where she just passed the 3-kilometer mark. So halfway home. So Elmore with the lead.
Berlin Schultz of Nebraska, a bit of a surprise in second. But, Paul, to your point, Utah 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. So they're doing kind of a BYU on this end. But Oregon, very good. 1, 5 with Anika Thompson, 11 with Wilma Nielsen, 13 with Allie Inch, the freshman, 14 with another freshman, Charlotte Sinke, and 16 with Ella Nelson. That's a good pack, too.
Yeah, so 10 Utah and Oregon athletes in the top 15 positions. So that team race getting really intriguing here as we go to the second half of this race. And the delta right now for Maddy Elmore, about 8 seconds on the rest of the field as she has asserted herself. And I would say that 8 seconds has grown even wider here in just the last few moments.
It has indeed. And for those of you that are wondering about Berlin Schultz, well, she was 10th at the Greeno-Dirksen cross-country race earlier this year. She's a sophomore, but she's a 4:17 1500 runner, 2:07 800 runner. So she herself is just having a marvelous race to be up with the rest of this crew. But you got to believe that Vringer and Caesar, Peters, the 2 Peters and Jensen, boy, that race between them and Anika Thompson, who is just surrounded right now by all these Utah runners, is going to be very interesting. But looking at the tempo and form of Maddy Elmore, nothing at all disturbing her right now. The slight undulations of the course, nothing. She is just in total command. Great audio here, by the way, hearing those footsteps. And a marvelous job by our runnerspace team, both in Springfield and in Eugene. Just beautiful pictures, Paul. Go ahead, sorry.
No, that's all good. I was just noting, and we reflected it on that course map, and now you see it from high above, and still getting our head around seeing that big Oregon O logo next to the Big Ten mark. But that is, a fun thing that has added a lot of excitement in this region here as we bring you the coverage of this 2024 Dellinger Invite for the first time ever on Big Ten Plus. The course tracker is also in view now in that lower left corner as they'll start to head their way down to that southern end of the course. So kind of getting ready for that final loop, and a good shot there in the upper part of your screen of that lead that Maddy Elmore has.
Paul, I looked at the facial expression of Erin Vringer, and if I had to pick who's going to break away from that pack, it would be her. She looked very comfortable. I don't know that she'll take a run at Maddy Elmore, but certainly in that group where she's with Schutz and Caesar and Thompson, Vringer looked really, really good, so I'm anticipating that she will probably pull away slightly here at the end.
So 13 minutes elapsed here.
And a little bit of separation. Anika Thompson's fallen back from that group. It's hard for me to tell, since there are 3 red, whether Schutz is still in there or whether that's Vringer, Caesar, and Peters.
We'll get one more split at 5 kilometers. So with 1K to go, we'll be able to reset that order as you keep an eye on some of your favorite singlets and favorite squads across the large contingent of mainly West Coast squads, but Utah and others coming out here as well, along with Nebraska, to try to get the experience of running at Dellinger.
Yeah, and Utah right now a 17-point lead over Oregon. Elmore takes a look back there. 17-point lead over Oregon and another Big Ten school, Nebraska in third, well ahead of Montana State, UCLA, and Oregon State are really battling it out for 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, this is a great spot on the course with that turn back and gives Elmore that chance to get a gauge of where she is in relationship to her competitors, but equally as importantly, trying to see where her teammates are.
And Vringer is on the far left, Paul. She's starting to get just a little bit of separation here. Well, maybe not. For a second, it looked that way. Anika Thompson, you can see there with the grinding. She's just a little bit further back from that crew. And that's a tough place to be. That's no man's land. You got a pack in front of you. You got a couple behind you. But Anika Thompson doing a great job in trying not to let that pack behind her catch up.
Well, and just get low stick as you can, right? And
yes.
You have somebody up there in front. Looks like she's going to be the number one runner and the low stick on this day. And Oregon trying to break up that contingent of Utah Utes. It was Utah with the lead at 3,000 meters. We'll see if they'll hold that lead or whether that lead has dwindled at 5,000 meters. Oregon with 45 points to Utah's 28 points. So we'll keep an eye on that. 17 points the difference at the halfway mark, with another split coming at 5 kilometers. Now, just look at that splendid isolation for Maddy Elmore.
Yeah, and I just love, if you see, she's got a lot of bounce off the turf there. So that's an indication, both her facial expression and how she is doing her turnover and cadence, and also the bounce and the rhythm, that she is full of run here. And she's only got about another minute or so left in this race, and it's just kind of a coronation here in front of family and friends for a young woman that grew up just a couple miles from this golf course. And what a great way to start your senior campaign of cross-country and track running, to win on your home course in front of your home crowd.
Well, you talked about her history-making performances last year. You don't take down marks held by runners like Kathy Hayes for several decades without having the innate talent to do so, helped and certainly buoyed by the fact of the coaching talents of Shalane Flanagan. Really has made that transition to collegiate coaching well, and just a wonderful, wonderful advocate for her athletes and providing them an opportunity to compete at their best. You can see the race within the race now as the spectators move adjacent from that one vantage point to the other, which will be where this young woman, Maddy Elmore, will be in a few moments, as we see back now
Vringer. It's Vringer now that's moved away. Schutz has dropped back. So Vringer in second, Caesar in third, who was third here 2 years ago, and Schutz is now in fourth.
Yeah, so Vringer, Caesar, and Schutz second, third, and fourth. So Oregon's Elmore with a lead now that has grown to over 16 seconds as she starts to make her way towards the finish line. Thompson is up into fifth, so has gotten Oregon now 1 and 5. Vringer and Caesar are 2 and 3, and that's now, you see the difference there. That's just 1 point in that team standing. Utah still comfortably with their third and fourths in 6th and 7th, but we'll see what happens here, and that will be why the camera will be fun to watch, not only when the winner comes across the finish line, but also with those placings into the top 20, because I think that team's title is going to be decided pretty quickly, because all those runners for Utah and Oregon are among the top 20 now.
Yeah, and Kyle Kepler, as I mentioned, just got to be really happy. Morgan Jensen did a great job moving up through the pack in this race. She's another one of those senior leaders. She's currently in 6th. And then it's Annastasia Peters, the number one freshman at the NCAA, a number one American freshman last year, that's currently in 7th. 2, 3, 6, 7. And we're waiting on the data to see exactly where everybody else is. But Maddy Elmore out for a jog today.
Yeah, it took a very big demonstrative look behind, but maybe that 17-second margin is beginning to dwindle.
Vringer is coming, but it's not going to be enough. It's going to be too little, too late. But Vringer is coming. She's going to have a nice finish here.
So into the closing stages of this race here, Elmore and Vringer now in view. Caesar.
Yep, she's there in third.
But here's the turn for home now for Maddy Elmore.
I hope she puts a big smile on her face, because this is really a nice thing to be able to enjoy this, to know that you've won. You're in front of your home crowd. I hope she can just enjoy and savor this last part of the race. I really do. She deserves it. That's a great close-up shot from our runner space cameras of Maddy right there. Little distress. You can see Vringer in the background.
"19 minutes elapsed on the clock here, so just a little less than a minute to go before she gets over this last little rise, and now being directed into that home chute, and here she is. She's going to have herself a victory. Hometown kid representing the hometown team, And Oregon's going to have the individual winner here in the Bill Dellinger Invitational as Maddy Elmore is going to take the women's victory here in a shade under 20 minutes. Reps that O in what Oregon hopes will be a lot of victories over the course of this weekend. And Elmore shuts it down right as she gets across the finish line. Vringer with a strong close, really ate into that gap, Tom, as it was down under 10 seconds, but the time that race was over. So she picked up almost 9 seconds over the last kilometer. And here comes Nebraska's Utes. Caesar's across the line. Utah's now got 4 across the line with Jensen and Nowakowska. And looks like they'll get their last runner in with Annastasia Peters. So it would appear Utah is going to take that team title. Oregon gave it a good go. Anika Thompson will finish in the top 10 with Nielsen and Ince finishing in 13th and 14th. But Oregon's going to come up just short here to be confirmed when all those marks are official.
Yeah, and I really like the performance by Allie Ince. They're the freshman, true freshman, finishing 14th for the Ducks, a 2:05 800-meter runner. But wow, Kyle Kepler, you have got a heck of a team when you go 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, and 15 for good measure. That's deep. That's 6 in the top 15 in a strong field. Shout-outs, a couple other shout-outs, Paul, if you'll suffer me. Schutz for Nebraska in 4th, and Allie Bainbridge, who moved up a lot during the course of the race for Nebraska in 7th. Our early leader, Christopher Moody, in 10th, and Kate Laurent from Oregon State continues a great season. She finishes 11th.
We mentioned at the top of the show, 2 Europeans on Shalane Flanagan's squad in Ilades and Kazmierska. Would they have won with them today?
Yes. Yes, they would have. Yeah.
And that's probably going to be one of the messages that Shalane finishes home with this group. You performed very well and finished second against Utah, but you also had the individual winner, Maddy Elmore, who's at the finish.
Oh, well, you couldn't have picked a better story to really finish off your last ever Bill Dellinger Invitational. The local kid from South Eugene High School, Maddy Elmore. Just talk about, just the emotions right now of winning this race and what it means to you.
This means so much to me, just being at home, and I was pretty devastated how my outdoor season ended. This is my first race back after basically I didn't run it all this summer, so it just means so much. Like, my family's here, and I've always wanted to win Dellinger, and I was gonna sit this one out again, but I was like, Shalane, like, this is my last cross country race in Eugene, so yeah, it couldn't be a better ending.
I also heard that your mom ran at this invitational when she was in college as well, when she was at Indiana. Is that true?
No, that was my cousin.
That was your cousin?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So,
Yeah.
Kind of carrying on that family tradition though like this, like what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means so much to me. Like, yeah, I was like this tall coming out here. It was actually at Priest Trail. But yeah, it's just like growing up in Eugene and then like having the success at Oregon that I have had and like the support I've had here. Like, I'm so glad I went to Oregon, and yeah.
First race like since the outdoor season, coming off what was a record, you broke the outdoor record in the 5,000. Like, what does it just mean just be able to get back out here, run with the women of Oregon again? I mean, this team, if you add Claudia and Shalane back in the mix, it could be a really deep team this year.
Yeah, I think it was kind of fun to see. Like, we sat some people out at Nutty Comb, so everyone's kind of like, oh, Oregon's not, what we thought they were going to be, but we're waiting for the end. I think with me, like, a lot of times I peaked too early in the season, so we're really focusing on being ready in November, and yeah, we want to place really high for Shalane and just for the program to get us back up there.
You like the effort today?
Yeah, it was the last K. I was like, oh god, but it was really good to get out here and race.
Well, Maddy Elmore, congratulations again. South Eugene High School legend. We're just hanging out here, Paul. Even I'm tired just after watching that race here.
Was a good day for South Eugene for sure, as congratulations goes to Maddy Elmore as she takes the victory here. Oregon looks like they'll hold on comfortably to that second place position and fight Utah on another day on a bigger stage, perhaps, for the team race here. And I think Maddy put it in good perspective, Tom, is that, she wanted that opportunity to run here, trying to get herself back into championship form for that race in November. And I'm sure from just the mental side of her preparation, a win here is going to do wonders for her in this training block.
No kidding. And, I think it's really important as we look to the championship season, Utah in the Big 12 and Oregon in the Big 10. Low sticks from Ilades and Kazmierska and Elmore. you can't underrate how important that is when you're running in a field of 275 runners. And when you have big talent like that, when you have an Olympic finalist in the 1,500 meters and a sub-4 1,500 runner, when you have a 15:11 5,000-meter runner in a Yildiz, that's some good firepower to kind of bring off the bench, if you will.
Well, it's a deep bench for Shalane Flanagan. You can heard it from Maddy as well, just the respect that she has from her team. And, you know, when you've towed the line at the biggest events in the world, that's an immediate credibility builder, and Shalane has done a fabulous job at Oregon and trying to put this team in a position perhaps be racing after a trophy in Wisconsin in just a little over a month from now. The final finishers coming through the line here as we...
And Paul, I think they have a very good shot, because I think Wilma Nielsen will get better and better too. She's coming off a track season, probably didn't run for a couple weeks. And, you know, when you get her back up, she was 5th in the Missouri Valley Conference in 22 in cross country, and 6th last year. So she's a good cross-country runner, and she'll come off that track season, and that went very late into August.
Well, this race unfolded a little bit differently than the men, as we saw a breakaway early on by Kyla Christopher Moody of Montana State, and it proved to be sort of, you know, the isolation of a leader at the front of the race, followed by a pass by Maddy Elmore about halfway through, and then it was basically her show, an infomercial from 3K on.
Big contrast between this race and the men's race, where we had a solid pack of 5 or 6 right there at the lead, and you didn't know which BYU runner was going to win. Here was the point where Maddy Elmore really started to pull away, and it was an 8-second lead before long, and then about a 15-second lead thereafter, and a little stress down the straightaway here, but Aaron Vringer did a superb job coming up, breaking away from a teammate Caesar, who was 3rd here 2 years ago, and good performance. Both Oregon and Utah should be ecstatic with how they ran today.
So with this women's race complete on a picture-perfect day in the Mohawk Valley, in the Willamette Valley as well. This is on your way out to Mackenzie River area, just east of Eugene in the town of Springfield. Utah is going to take the team victory on the women's side here at the 2024 Bill Dellinger Invitational. 25 points, their score. And Oregon finishing second with 53 points. Nebraska takes the 3rd spot on the podium as they amass 105 points in their visit out from Nebraska to Oregon. Take part in this annual running ritual that is the Bill Dellinger Invitational.